was appropriate, and then pick up the New York Times. There was no interest in learning, are there any problems that need to be solved, that they're outstanding? What's the outcome, what's the prospect of settling? Is there any way I could help? That was not even mentioned. It was, I found a sheer waste of time.
Now, you've been a member of the Bar Association, been very active in the last number of years. You have been the chair of the Memorial and Outreach Committee. Why don't you tell us about the couple things you're most proud of what that committee has done that you've led?
Okay. Well, at first, I've got to acknowledge Bob Margulies. Not because you're asking me questions, because it was a reality. I had been a member of the state bar and the county bar all my life, lifetime member. But I never really got into any participation. And I had in my brain, I was concerned about the ill will that was being generated potentially by best practices and the other pressures put upon lawyers as they interacted with each other. And I felt that there's got to be a way, something, maybe we could form a committee. So not knowing what to do with my idea, not having more than that feeling when I was in about 203, 204, that I went to Bob Margulies and I said, what do I do, Bob? Bob Margulies said, Frank, first you got to go to see the assignment judge. So at that time, our prior assignment judge thought I was in there complaining about the abusive practices. I said, no, Judge, quite to the contrary. I'm concerned with the lack of the lawyers having a decent relationship and being aware of the problems of others and helping them. So after I made my pitch, he said, okay, fine. But he wasn't forceful, he wasn't too positive, but he was approving. So then I went to my advisor, Mr. Margulies. He said, Frank, now you've got to see the president. I went to see Bill Netchett. I told him the idea. He said, Frank, we don't have it, run with it. So we were just free to do whatever we did. And then we formed a committee. And our idea in the very beginning was just funeral service. In other words, if there was a loss of a lawyer, to have some contact to try to participate in the ceremony. And then in about October, at one of our meetings, Joe Ryan said, hey Frank, you know there's a memorial service down in Freehold. I said, well, what? Oh, I said, okay, I'll go. So I went down there and I witnessed the ceremony and I fell in love with it. I said, this is ours. What have I got to do? And so that was then cemented in my mind, we're going to have a memorial service. And then in a couple of months, I remember seeing an ad in the New York Times about some stone merchant in New York selling plaques for about $4,000 to $5,000. And that then led to ultimately our memorial stone, which Bob, again, spent many, many hours, many trips out with Maloros, because we went from the stone merchant in Jersey City to see 4 stone merchants in North Arlington, seeing who's going to offer us the best buy, and we were impressed with Maloro. He talks a lot, but he seems to know a lot. He was a 4th generation. And then after many changes, it ultimately resulted in having a memorial stone. And I don't think, although I haven't checked, that there's another county that has a Compton memorial stone in their courthouse honoring their recent deceased.
And you remember what I told you, Frank, the deal is not to get on the stone too quick. So you keep your health. You are lucky to have your mental acuity at this age, and you are one of the gems of our bar. Thank you so much for talking with us today and becoming the first one who contributed to our oral history.
Thank you very much. I would just like to add that
Sure.
I just thought that each year in our memorial service. We've had, this is, our 9th is coming up. This year it's going to be in June because of the fact there's going to be construction. And then there's going to be no activities in the courthouse except the fellows who are restoring it, that we should have it now. And what we want to do is to add to the memorial stone. In other words, we have 118 names. It has a capacity between 50, estimate 50 to 75. We now want to get the group that we're going to be honoring from July 1, 2009 up to date. We will enter approximately 50 names on that memorial stone, which will remain in the courthouse.
Well, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.